Hey everybody, Nate Carter here with a question for you as we begin. What are you proud of? What are you most proud of? I mean, honestly, just take a moment and think, what are you proud of? Maybe you're proud of your kids, what they've accomplished. Maybe you're proud of where you've gotten in your career. Maybe you're proud of a certain accomplishment, or perhaps you're a craftsman at something you've made, or a certain a hobby or ability that you've honed and you've gotten good at over the years. If we were to ask the Apostle Paul what he is most proud of, we'd be really surprised by his answer, and it certainly wouldn't jibe with our modern context. Today we're in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And he starts by talking about this vision that he's had, and this kind of almost out-of-body experience that the Lord gave to him. And it's interesting he doesn't give much detail about what it was or what it was like. But he uses it as an example to talk about boasting and pride. In verse 5, he says, "That experience that I had is worth boasting about, but I'm not going to do it. I will boast only about my weaknesses." What's Paul proud of? He's proud about how weak he is. It's interesting that Paul, as he goes on here, he talks about the thorn in his flesh. And not only that, but apparently he's wasn't a very good public speaker. And I think tradition says that he probably wasn't much to look at either. I mean, he's just this unassuming guy, and yet God used him powerfully. And it's really because of the fact that he's an unassuming guy that only points to the power of Christ in him that God used him mightily. Skipping down to verse 7, "Even though I have received such wonderful revelations from God, so to keep me from becoming proud, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud." Interesting. A messenger from Satan, that God is using something that Satan has put into his life to do his work, to do God's work. And it shows that Satan is even still subject to the power of God. And Satan's ploys, Satan's tactics are still, can be harnessed and used by God. And in this case, it's something painful. It's a thorn in the flesh. 3 different times I begged the Lord to take it away. Each time he said, "My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I'm glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me." You get it? If we're weak, if it's not our own power at work, if it's something that's beyond our control, then we have to rely on an outside source of power. And when we choose to rely on Christ and the power of God in that situation, then that's when God works best, because we have no excuse. We have no claim on what happened. And so we have to give God all the credit for what he's done. Verse 10, "That's why I take pleasure in my weaknesses and in the insults, hardships, persecutions, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong." Just the other day, I got into really an argument with someone. It was I didn't instigate it. It wasn't my fault. I was kind of unfairly treated. I ended up getting yelled at. This guy insulted me. And as it turns out, there were extenuating circumstances in his life. He actually told me about it later and apologized. But I had to just endure being mistreated by someone. Now, Paul says, I take pleasure in those experiences. And what was interesting was that after that conversation, it actually opened up all kinds of opportunities for God to do good. And I'm so glad that I didn't return his evil for evil. But instead, I had a conversation with my wife that was really encouraging. We had a conversation as a family and talked about the experience. And my kids got to learn a little bit about how to interact with someone. And then later, this person apologized to me and explained what was going on in his life, and I got the chance to encourage him. And so what was really uncomfortable, it was definitely a thorn in the moment, ended up being something that God used for his glory. Do you take pleasure in your hardships and your insults and your weaknesses? I guess the last thing that I'll mention from that experience was that experience put me on my knees. And I spent a good deal of time praying and asking God to take it and to work through it. And because of that, it drew me into the one true power source. Now, do we have to enjoy it? I don't know. Maybe pleasure isn't quite the word, but we can certainly allow God to use it and to look forward to the way that God is going to use our weaknesses for his glory. So I encourage you next time that happens in your life to turn it over to God and see how God uses your weakness for his glory. See you next time on the Cornerstone Connection.